Hello and welcome. My name is Faye. I'm here from Your Heart's Path. I'm here to channel through and share messages, insight, guidance for the month of November. I have set this intention this morning to do the collective energy reading for you all. And crikey, it's felt really intense. I got to be honest with you. I'm sort of stuck in the first week. And when I say stuck, I'm just kind of experiencing that really heavily through my feeling body. Clairsentiently, there's a lot of information there that I'm looking forward to transmuting, just so it's not so intense on my own body. We're going to break this up into different sections today. We're going to do the beginning, the middle, and the end of the month, as I really just, when I had a look at this information, it's not one big wave through the month. It really felt like some significant new chapters of each book, perhaps even a new book for each little chunk. So the midsection being a little bit smaller, the end one being sort of our arrival, and this initial part, which I'm sort of looking at for the first 10 to 14 days. That's sort of how we're going to look at this today. For those of you that are new here, I work as a channel, clairvoyant and teacher. So I help people tune in with the skill set of the intuition to live a life intuitively. And I also teach people to tap into and utilize their spiritual gifts. So this is something I guess that I didn't really have when my gifts opened very quickly. It was quite intense on my body and my being emotionally. I really didn't know what was going on. And so it's inspired me to stand in a position where I can help people that are going through something that is similar to my own experience, but hold the hand through the journey. Obviously, I'm here doing this piece as well. I'm not very visible on very many platforms other than Instagram at this point in time. So you can find me there at Your Heart's Path. The evolution is happening at its own perfect pace, and I'm just excited to kind of get into today. So I think that's enough housekeeping. I did have a very interesting experience nonetheless on the weekend. I tuned in to do some work on my soul, and two of my guides actually departed. So that happens at times when we arrive in a different chapter of our lives, when there's been a bit of an upgrade, which I really feel like I've been initiated into over the last few months. But these were two guides that I've worked with pretty diligently over the last 24 months. They're not guides that have been with me my whole life. And they actually left, and I've had two more come in. So this is the first sit down with my two new guides. They're already sort of delivering messages and insight. They speak a little differently to my other guides. So clairvoyantly, I just noticed that there was a different flavor. There's certainly more information there. So for my channel, it almost feels like there's more to be able to see. I'm still going to keep this really nice and simple today, but if it sounds like things are coming through a little bit differently, bear with me, as this is sort of initiation process in itself of just learning how to interpret the way that they communicate as well. So they're very much present. We'll obviously be channeling things through as we go. They gave me a pretty brief stamp for each section, so I'm assuming we'll just kind of allow for this to flow. But welcome to the first part of November, as there is an extremely intense energy. We're in very much a void space between these two eclipses. I'm not going to go so much into the astrology, but really the flavor of this and how it's manifesting inside of our physical body is it's really, really intense. I want to approach this by some of the patterns and behaviors I was noticing inside of myself this morning. You can even hear how I'm struggling to put words to describe or sort of find flow, and it's not really about flow. This first week, it sort of feels a lot like chaos. We are still heavily purging from the earth, thus there is a lot of light coming into those spaces, so it can almost feel a little bit like a compression happening. We really do want to make sure that we stay grounded to the physical and the etheric bodies. Underneath the ground, it is really rumbling, and there is a great sense of purge. So it's always really beautiful when the times are like this to really ask yourself what is yours and what is not. We can get caught up in the collective soup of the overall experience or the themes that are going on. You will be triggered into your own realization or process for healing if you do connect with some of these themes that are purging, but on a more individual note. We are kind of in the middle of the ocean. That's the best way that I could describe this. And I'm not talking like a big, flat, cruisy ocean. I'm talking like quite big, tumultuous waves. The sky is quite dim. It's not the middle of the night, but it's a little bit spooky. The body is not physically exhausted, but there's aches and pains inside of the joints. We really are almost needing to just go with the flow of these big waves as they come through, and allow for that sort of drop off period as you come down the other side of the wave and it's smooth before the next set comes in. And that is the best explanation I have of this period of time. We're not latching on to the light as in the expression of huge amounts of joy, huge amounts of passion maybe actually, huge amounts of joy, huge amounts of like ecstasy. It's kind of, we're going into the subconscious realms. We are very much navigating through a shadowy period of time internally that is going to manifest more the opposite of that towards the end of the month, which we will get to. But within this experience of sort of metaphorically floating through the middle of the ocean with these huge big waves, we can notice our own internal response or reaction to this. And if you were in that position, and so you're sort of floating around here, there, and everywhere, you can only imagine the internal dialogue that sort of goes on into that space. We kind of get initiated into a little bit of a fight or flight mode. The guidance here, or the invitation, with the gift that you can breathe underwater, is to take momentary snippets of quiet as you actually merge down consciously below the ocean, to see those bits inside of the quiet that are there in front of you, that are there in your initial lens. So because the light is dimmed, we go underwater in that space, and there's almost like murky visions and pictures and things of our own psyche, right, talking to us in that space. And we're holding the breath almost in that place as we go, okay, I've got this, I'm going to have a look, and we allow for it. It's not huge amounts of big like things ripping stuff out. It's just this kind of natural evolution. It's almost like slides of the past moving through your being, so as that you can kind of observe these from the higher self's perspective, and actually physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically let some of these aspects go. There is such a beautiful invitation to be deeply honest with the self through this next week in regards to things that we've sort of kept hidden, perhaps secrets, perhaps different ways that we respond behind closed doors. Perhaps it's just the way you think about certain things, or when you tune out because you're actually bored when someone's talking to you, and then you start to wonder, why am I actually spending time with this person? And we're going into places where perhaps we're asking uncomfortable questions that we previously didn't give any attention to because it was easier just to keep looping in that reality. And we're actually got the courage to ask these questions now and receive the honest response. So there can be quick, sharp, short endings to jobs, relationships, habits, behaviors, addictions, things that haven't been serving you, that you've known but haven't had the desire, the energy, or the capacity to even look at it and go, you know what, I'm just moving forward. I'm just going to try what it's like without. I'm just am, because it's like the weight of the grip that these things have had on you unconsciously become conscious, and you're like, hold on a second, what was I doing? Hold on a second, why have I been behaving that way? Hold on a second, why have I been in that environment? Hold on a second, that's not serving me. So it's almost like little epiphanies, and we have those epiphanies when we drop into that place internally. The subconscious is inside of the physical body, right? So when we can go in and we almost experience that initial silence, so we calm the fight or the flight, we come into that little silent piece. That'll happen through tiredness and fatigue if we don't consciously go in, may I add. And when we go into that space, we can feel, if you can't see, sense, and kind of give permission to allow what wants to come up to come up. I know we're kind of doing this always, but there is big stuff here. This is like stuff that you've tucked in the closet from when you were 6 years old, or conversations you had when you were 16, or a life path where you chose this career because you go in and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that actually wasn't my idea at all. And I've been doing this because of X, Y, Z. And so these epiphanies help us go into this new stage of evolution, which we are strongly being called into right now. So this can feel challenging. I know that I touched on that part of like the fatigue and the exhaustion. If we're not consciously going into practice right now, journaling, your own sort of somatic experience, whether you're not sure, it's like, if we don't put time aside for ritual devotion and for going within, it starts to leak through in our day-to-day. So if you've got still a bit of a structure and a routine that you need to be, ticking things off your list, then we really need to add this place where you go in devotion. Otherwise, it will start to leak through into your everyday reality and we end up just an unconscious mess. And so we're bringing consciousness to the unconscious. And I really love this for us because we are in this strange kind of void between eclipses where it's like a process has begun, but we haven't quite finished it yet. It's almost like having half a night's sleep, or picking up a phone call halfway through your workout and then not having time to go back and finish it off. And you sort of, it's like it's running there still. And no matter what it is that we're doing, we're not making huge leaps forward or huge big action steps for the future in this first week. We are really just in a process of sort of allowing. This does take courage and it does take strength not to entertain the stories that are not your own, to keep your feet on the ground, to choose to love yourself enough to look at these uncomfortable places, not judging yourself. And with that, not as a mirror to my own internal experience, but I do feel like a changing of the guards energy here. So this is the way that they describe this to me is through archetypes. So could you reflect on what it is that you've been experiencing? I want to say over the last 14 to 16 months, what has been your strongest expression of an archetypal energy within you? I really do feel like we have lots of different archetypal essences and they kind of work together. We have some that are stronger, some that are just there and sort of very deeply integrated, others that we've been going through an evolutionary practice through the themes that have been really strong in our life. So what archetypal energy has been really loud for you? Is this the maiden? Is this the mother? Is this the king? Is this the queen? Is this the magician? There are lots of them, and if you don't have that answer initially, it might just be an exposure to some knowledge and allow your intuition to show you. I feel like having this insight is really helpful. And what it feels like is that those lessons and those learnings from that archetypal essences come through to really support you through your journey over the last 14 to 16 months-ish, perhaps longer. It feels like those are the lessons that are complete, and what they're showing me is like a tap being turned off. I feel like there's water still coming out, and then through this first week initially where things are really intense, we end up with this tap coming off and there's just a few drips through that middle section. And then in the last section of the month where we have the ending, so to speak, which is the beginning, we have a whole new flavor. So it's like going from cold to warm water. And with that new flavor, there is a new archetypal expression within you that may come through feeling quite mature already because you've experienced this through another life. And it may come through quite immature, but also really curious to express itself in all different ways. And we will arrive at that later. So the letting go of this archetypal essence can almost feel like a bit of a death, because this player inside of your internal psyche, or this expression of energy, no longer has any juice to sort of feed your reality. And it's perfect. Yet we do want to allow space when we experience some kind of a death, whether that be collective or at an individual level, to kind of celebrate. And it sounds really odd while things are going, they feel a little bit crazy. But celebrate just in the small ways. It's a really beautiful time to reflect when things feel really intense, just how far you've come. All these little practices keep us connected to our heart. They allow us to soften and not go into fear that things are sort of being let go right now. And the less kind of grip and control we have over the chaos that we are experiencing, the more easily it sort of floats by. The weather was such a beautiful expression of this morning at home. It's really windy today, and it's actually really warm. But the wind is so intense. I was setting up to film for you guys and the clouds were coming through, and so the light was all changing in here, and I had a shower and I didn't wash my hair, and I was like, gosh, why didn't I do that? I'm going to be all greasy. And I was like, stop. And I was like, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll wash my hair tomorrow and I'll turn up then. And I noticed my tongue was purging, and I was like, oh, you know, all these things that could have been an excuse not to follow through with today, but I would have been in resistance of the kind of chaos had I just gone, you know what, I'm just going to leave it and I'll turn up tomorrow. It is not a complete stop. It's kind of rolling with it whilst we shake off this perfectionist thing, because it's just, life is just not like that. And so if we can go with the wind, you know, kind of embrace it and open up to it and just go, you know what, like it'll move through. And as it moves through, it'll take with it what it needs to. It takes those seeds and it places them somewhere else for something new to blossom. And it's a necessary part of our own human and I want to say spiritual evolution to harmonize our bodies and allow, without resisting, that challenge is such a beautiful opportunity for growth without trying to control the speed, or I even want to say the outcome, because destiny is inevitable when you're on that path and you are following your heart. If at the moment you're struggling really emotionally and that connection to your heart is feeling really hard and you're feeling like you need that extra support, and we're not talking about support outside of your space, simple practices like back to the roots of I want to say like our foundational pieces, like making sure you're in your body, grounding, eating good food, drinking plenty of water, like double your intake, good foods, not sabotaging through sugars and chemicals and all these other things that create inflammation and blockages inside of our body. If you don't want to approach this through a very energetic lens, you can really approach this physically right now, which I really love. There's lots of information internally inside of the physical body, but if you're feeling like on a sensitive level, it's actually at the point of overwhelm, then this might be a really beautiful time for a small detox, especially around the organs of the liver. They're highlighting, and also through the digestive tract. So it almost feels like a good time if you wanted to look at like parasite cleanse or get a colonic or wash things through. I noticed that like my tongue, when I tuned into that, it was an individual piece, but I feel like that's something that we can be seeing. And there's a fearlessness in sticking the tongue out. I'm not going to do it for you guys, but to stick the tongue out, you know, there's this kind of like strength inside of the fear that can be really wobbly. We don't need to close down like this right now. It is this kind of expansive energy in the ugliness. And that's kind of what this all felt today. I was like, no, you know, they're just stories. It's just things. And that doesn't need to be limiting in our ability to be able to show up and be of service to ourselves, but also to other. So without getting off track, things like oil pulling and scrubbing the skin, you know, like bringing good circulation to, especially to the lower half of the body. Yes, things like colonics, oils, you know, I want to say just like a cleansing thing, whatever that is for you. It might be sweating in a sauna. It might be, it doesn't feel cold. I actually almost feels like there's warmth and there's toxins inside of the body that want to come out. But follow your own intuition there. Ask your body, is there something, you know, do you need a physical detox right now? Is there something that doesn't need to be in my diet anymore? And I think we're going to have little insights like that, little epiphanies as the month goes on. I'm like, holy shit, I had one of these 6 months ago. I was like, what? I was asking over and over again, why is my face puffy? Why is my face puffy? And every morning I would look at it and then my guys just said to me one day, they were like, it's the soy milk. Because I'd like stopped to listen, and I removed the soy milk. I'm like, all this information from my body, it was just a knowing. And I'd previously, this has dropped in, but there'd been no energy behind it to back the transformation. I was like, yeah, I'll get to that when I've done these X, Y, Z. So we can have epiphanies like that of like, shit, it's that thing, you know? And the ability to kind of just be able to shake it off without any care in the world. Mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically. We're bouncing around. These two new guides are very beautiful and very interesting. The image that they shared with me initially was around biting a mushroom that was, you know, the red mushrooms with the white spots that I believe that they've been used in ancient times for, you know, different practices. You all know what I feel about sort of psychedelics and all sorts of other things. As far as our evolution, I'm much more I want to say like in support on a personal level to do this journey naturally, so I don't ingest any of these substances into my body anymore. I did once upon a time. But on another note, the image was biting this mushroom and actually falling over and like dead. It was like it was like the chapter was over, and it was quite abrupt. There was like a nice cute little tea party kind of thing going on, and it was a chewing of this mushroom, and then they were showing me it through my own body just as a representation clairvoyantly, and it was like ah. But the question that they asked from that space is, what do you want to do here now? And death is one of those things that we obviously don't talk about a lot in the Western culture. It's a bit taboo. It's sort of strange. We don't really know how to act or respond. And in that place, like, you know, initially we might kind of like close the eyes down and put like a blankie over and put the body in a really beautiful space and put flowers and stuff on it or play nice music. But I certainly wouldn't have wanted to be put in like a coffin and shut in that space. I was like, oh, you know, so I kind of spoke to myself, and I feel like death is a really beautiful contemplation if you're in a position to do that and you haven't just recently lost somebody. And not the death of other, I'm talking about the death of different aspects of ourselves. What sort of ritual do you need to bring into your life at this period of time when we are actually going through this death or this letting go or this transition from one expression into another? How do you need to nurture yourself? And I feel like that's really important. This is where the like celebration piece comes through, right? It's like, do I need to celebrate how far I've come? Do I need to celebrate the simple things in my life? Do I need to celebrate the natural cycles of nature, my seasons? Do I need to stop and thank this archetypal expression from getting me from point A to point B? Anything else that we need to bring through for the first chunk of November? And this being that process from, I'm going to say like the 1st to the 14th, so right up to the eclipse and then a couple of days after. I can't emphasize enough, I'm not an astrologer, but this eclipse is really, really potent, and sometimes just bringing energy, devotion and practice, ritual around these experiences is really beautiful. It's also really healing. It helps our cognitive self get online as well. Sometimes we do need a little bit of information or participation from all bodies. So it'd be a really beautiful time to, I want to say like burn sort of ceremonies using fire, actually using the earth. So burying things that you don't want in your home, or little notes to the universe, like putting them into places where you're consciously kind of letting things go, a gratitude sort of a practice. And I want to say there's a fearlessness through this process, a fearlessness of the darkness that is inside all of us that we are here to transmute. And if that wasn't part of our journey, we wouldn't be here. So I think we get really realistic with some of this, and we don't approach this from a really judgmental space. It's really just moment to moment, what's the best thing for me now? But I would encourage you to intuitively bring your own practice around the eclipses. This is something, I want to say this is one of the biggest events that we've had in what is happening right now. I'm going to say close to 8 years. This is really, really huge, and this really is a new timeline, and that is going to manifest in everybody's lives in a really intense kind of a way. And it's inevitable. I don't think we can fight the change or put things off any longer. It really feels like a bit of a kickstart into a whole new direction and a whole new life. So there's going to be different degrees of this expression depending on whereabouts you are in your life, what sort of work you've been doing to support yourself. And that may be, they've kind of described it in 3 layers of that, like right at the bottom where you're like, shit, I feel like I'm on my deathbed and I'm going to need all of the support that I can possibly muster up and ask my guides for help every day. And then there's this middle section where it feels a little bit lighter. It's almost a bit more comfortability in the shadow side, a little bit more comfortability with the unconscious, with some tools to be able to support yourself through this. It feels a bit more, I want to say like you supporting you, versus this feels really like a whole community, extending their arms, but you've got to be able to ask for the assistance. And then there's this more surface level where you're sort of thrown around in the chaos a little bit, and then into the deep, and then thrown around in the chaos, and maybe even joy and excitement and lots of ideas, and then into the silence. So whichever sort of vibrational expression of this that you are currently on, they're all perfect. It is going to feel, time is going to feel quite strange. It's a very intuitive time. it's a very intuitive experience over the next 14 days. But time is going to feel all sorts of warped and weird, because I feel like we've got insights and lots of insights back into the past as all of these kind of things start to float around and reshuffle. So your schedule and these sorts of things might be affected from this place as well. If you are in a position where, you know, we don't want this to manifest as illness or disease, or not that I feel like as a fear factor, more just, you know, if your body really needs a detox, what is it that you can do to just support yourself in that? If you need a day at home because you've got a really bad headache and you would normally just go to work, could you nurture the headache and stay home and look after yourself in that place versus pushing yourself? And perhaps when you stop and you give yourself that time, what moves needs to move, and perhaps the courage comes through and you get this kind of idea or this inspiration to go into that next space. So it really, we're not fighting this right now. It feels like destiny on a collective level, and I do feel like we are moving into great celebration with all of this. The 3 cards that I pulled for this first chunk of the month in November was the Lion. This is a beautiful expression of the strength. I also really feel like I want to draw attention to like the colors of the sun in this space as well. When I see this clairvoyantly, the lion's face comes through and I see that big, beautiful sun. It feels like creator energy. I really do feel like this is also an expression to really connect with, I want to say, your trust in the universe when things get tough, to really look at your faith, to really look at your, you know, your soul's divine mission and the importance of that. And it'll allow for you to settle into your heart space, but also you've cultivated strength, you've cultivated resilience this year, you have cultivated a level of surrender that allows for us to go through these wishy-washy periods and come out the other side feeling brand new. So you can call on the strength of the lion. You can activate that inside of your body. Perhaps you put music on and move like the lion and roar and make sound and stick your tongue out. And, you know, it's these kinds of expressions and these release practices are really, really beautiful. So I'm going to place that there. This might pop up for you throughout the month as well. Just as a reminder, you might dream about the lions. You might see pictures or images, or just clairvoyantly have a little expression of that when we meditate on particular archetypes or essences. It can actually come through quite strong, as in we're connecting with that essence and we can bring it to life in our own being. So how is your lion currently moving, and how does your lion move through challenges? How does your lion move through the chaos? The other expression was the shark. Sharks, I know they look a little bit scary, and some of this it's this underwater thing. It's this deep underwater thing. We're not looking so much at the predatory energy of the shark or being on top of the food chain, not these sort of aspects. I really look at this vibrationally, like the sonar that it puts out. And so there's a choice here to be the peaceful, loving, beautiful expression of the shark. You see these 2 people talking about sharks in 2 different ways. Someone that's absolutely terrified of them, and they're, you know, like me a little bit when I go swimming in the ocean, and like they're on my mind and I'm sending out this radar of like fear, versus people that have a really beautiful connection with the shark energy that is like they're in awe of them and they go swimming with them and they're not afraid to jump into the deeps and, you know, go into all of these places where the sharks might just appear out of nowhere. You're swimming through the seaweed and boom, there is one. And because we use that expression metaphorically as well with the ocean and kind of being underneath it periodically, it feels very connected to the heart. So how can I slow my heart rate down right now to calm myself down after those waves of fear come up? So I'm not saying move fear out of your body completely. I think that comes with mastery and time potentially, but for myself, you know, as I speak for myself when I say I still get afraid of things. I still am afraid of sharks. Once upon a time I might not have gotten in the ocean at all, and maybe now I get in and I go up to my shoulders and I can have a swim down around, but there's a process of consciously calming myself down to be able to enjoy some of that freedom of just kind of being at one with the ocean, and I love that. So vibrationally pick up your own experience with this. What do you feel when you look at this? And I think that this, in a simple nutshell, is like how are we responding to fear, and what is our protocol when it arises in the moment? Can we connect this to heart and breath as a simple tool, not only to bring you back from fight or flight, but to manage your I want to say like regulating your system as the intensity of things comes to like a bit of a peak. So anything that brings calming into your body and your being, anything that brings you a sense of soothing, anything that, you know, can you talk to your heart and say, I'm going to slow my heart rate down, please? You know, I'm going to breathe into my belly, not just the top end of my chest. Those that have been experiencing anxiety, or it's something that you struggle with, anxiety, depression, I feel like this patch of the first sort of 14 days, some of this can be really intense. So it might be a really beautiful time to, you know, book an extra spot with your counselor, or, you know, get your physical movement done and bring those tools that you already have really to the forefront of your awareness as like we really do deeply need to take care of ourselves right now. Moving on, the starfish. You know, when I look at this, I actually saw like the bottom layer. You know, when we spoke of this in sections, like very bottom, middle, and then above, I saw this on the bottom. But the interesting thing about being in that space where it was almost just like death, like that, I'm just like here and I'm getting ready. My soul is getting ready to transition on, and it was peaceful though. That was the really beautiful thing that I loved. The starfish on the very bottom of the ocean with all of this other stuff going on above it. And you could see that the light almost penetrated through in that space, right from above, you know, pouring down into the starfish. And it was just this kind of process of allowing, I want to say almost taking like a bird's eye view of life, taking a bird's eye view of the soul's evolution, taking a bird's eye view of your path, whilst staying inside of your physical body. So it's a perspective piece that feels like the lifeline in that period. Again, the starfish might be something that comes up for you guys. This can be stars in the sky as well. I feel like there's so many different astrological alignments that are happening right now that are just can pretty much shift our entire blueprint. So I do find that really interesting. Just a question that I wrote down here, where did the heart close off to seeing your path through the lens of source? So that was connected to that, which I really like. So it's almost like an opening a heart to the greater vision while staying inside of your body, right? The heart opens into as when you're in this space to feel the sensation of that whilst you meditate, whilst you ponder the perfection of life. You can do this by looking at your old previous challenges and going, wow, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be here or here. I wouldn't have met this person or had this experience. And, you know, have that body inside of your wisdom that you're able to share with other or whatever that is for you. Okay, we're not going to go into that. We're going to move to the middle section. This is obviously a little bit shorter. I really do feel like this is going to be a period of let's just say roughly a week. I think this is going to actually, and when I say 10 to 14 days, I think it's just going to be different for people depending on how quickly they process things, depending on what your journey is, because there are 3 expressions of this energy or 3 layers of this energy right now. So in the middle, we can go to the metaphor again inside of the ocean. This is where we are up on top of the ocean. Some of you are in a raft at this point in time, so you're actually in a boat. But the sea is quite intense. It's still pulling. Some of you are in the ocean still with a life raft, so you've been giving yourself something. And then some of you have just chosen not to swim against the rip. So there's 3 expressions of this. Being in the boat, it's almost like you have a higher view. There's a safety there of being inside a really strong structure. And with that structure, it's like they're showing me visually now, like you can see the land in which you're moving to. So it feels less intense. The body actually feels like it starts to get quite strong again. The aches and pains are gone. It's almost like a thirst and a focus. So it's like laser sharp focus. And if you have been on your like truth seekers mission and you've been listening to your heart and doing this work diligently, you've not just recently sort of had your awakening, I feel like this is almost for you. It's like you can see where it is that you are going and you are just paddling. And even though in time your body might sort of feel a bit like, oh, you know, I need to stop and pause for a minute to get food, I can almost see the vision like, nah, I'm just gonna get there. And so it can feel actually really liberating and really powerful, and it sort of just feels like, I want to say you're not even judging the darkness anymore. And I love this because it's not, that's where this work is done, you know? And the sun is there. Is it setting or is it rising? It's rising. They're saying it's rising. It looks like it's setting, but then it actually starts to elevate as you get closer and closer to that next pivotal point. What's the guidance here though, please, as far as this goes? Okay, so it's more just about the connection from the head to the body. It can feel like mentally really strong. The physical body can sort of be catching up, but we just want to make sure that we keep the head and the heart connected. You can do this by drawing like a line of energy, so visualizing yourself inside of like a beam internally, and just make sure that it's moving all the way through you. I want to say below your heart, but there is quite an intensity when I start to move through and look at the lower half of the body here. So it feels like there's going to be an attention to hips, knees, and feet for you in that final stage, almost like a really intense grounding that's needing to happen. Because you're sort of sitting in this place, and then there's the need to stand. But the legs, you know, when you've been sitting and you kind of cut off the blood supply a little bit, and then you stand up and all the blood rushes to that area, but then you can get the tingles and the numbness. It almost feels energetically like that's the best way that I could possibly describe it. There's no conversation or anything going on. There is a lot of birds in this imagery. Birds as messengers. I feel like they're dropping little notes of like encouragement. There's little like intuitive insights when he's aware enough. And I just say he, she, whoever it is, a metaphorical expression. So if you feel that's you through that second part and you're rowing in the boat, you can be so focused on where you're going, you can sort of miss what's going on around you, which is okay. You're still going to arrive, but there's depth in being really present with your surroundings in that space. So focused, sure, you're moving, but if you notice a bird come through your vision in that space, can you kind of, even though you want to keep still, you still want to keep moving, can you stop for a moment and feel into that? What was that all about? Was there a message there for me? What type of bird is that? How is it moving? Where is it going? Ask these questions. Allow curiosity in this space, and you might not get the answer until you arrive on shore, but it sets the current for that insight to come in motion. And I do really feel like those intuitive pings are going to be coming in strong, especially in dream time space. So if you're not keeping a record of your dreams, you don't fully need to understand all of these, but nice just to jot down some little points, because I feel like we're going to be getting lots of messages and already have been in that dream space, as well as assisting the purging of the earth. What does that even mean? It just means that we're running energy through our bodies that is our own, but also part of the collective. So if your dreams have felt a bit distorted and strange, please know that it's okay. Some of these don't need to be broken apart. You can ask that question, like, oh, I remember this experience. Just ask, was this directly related to my experience? You know, ask your body. You'll get a strong, like a yes can just be an opening, and a no can just be like a closing. That's all I'm going to say. There's lots of different ways to ask, things we obviously would do in like developing your intuitive skill set. But I feel like most of you watching this kind of know that anyway. This is that weird interim piece as well between the changing of the guard, so to speak. So the archetypal expression, it's almost, we've had that sort of letting go or that death period into that sort of opening where there's no real strong archetypal essence that has like jumped in straight away. It's almost like it comes to life as you start to ask yourself questions as you're rowing along the ocean as to what it is that you need when you arrive. The curiosity is coming and you're like, wow, I'm going to this whole new chapter of my life and the world is really rapidly changing. And you will start to ask questions that you haven't been asking before. And this is what sends it almost out into the universe, that brings back the invitation or the expression of the archetypal essence that will bring in the answers and the experiences that your soul is ready for. All right, we're going to jump to the person in the raft. And I'm sorry that we have to break it up in these 3 parts, but that's just how they're talking about it. So I just got to trust. If you're in the raft, this is much about catching your breath. I want to say post-eclipse. It's much about catching your breath. So this can really be like, it feels more like the person that doesn't give themselves time to stop and catch up with themselves. Like, I want to just give you a dose of like, please just put a movie on Netflix, put your feet up, and make yourself a really nice home-cooked meal and nourish your body and have a cry. And it feels a bit more hermity, less kind of more awareness as to where you've been distracting yourself and where life has been kept moving super, super fast in order to stop what it is that wants to speak from the inside. when we stop and listen in that space, it can be a forced stopping too, whether that's just through a cold, or I know like I've sprained my ankle before when I haven't been listening, so I've just had to stop and put my feet up, and I'm like, oh wow, if only. But we learn through these experiences. So again, it doesn't mean that you're all going to have an injury, no way. It can just be that this catching of the breath, and it feels really beautiful. Out the other side of that, it's almost like, you have a big sleep in that period where you wake up in the afternoon, you're like, oh, I don't even know what day it is, what time is it, what was I meant to do? It's got that sort of effect, but you almost open your eyes in that space with a really new perspective. Oh wow, I have been exhausted. Oh wow, I haven't been listening. Oh wow, I have been saying really awful things to myself, And to see it with that, like when we spoke about in the beginning, that kind of whole new perspective of, wow, I can't believe I was functioning in that way, because you're ready to experience life in a very different way as the creator too. And I think that comes with this ticket of like, wow, I've created this experience. What would I like to create instead? So there is a pondering that comes with that. Again, almost like a sense of curiosity that brings to life the archetypal energies in that space. And that can be a much softer expression, a much more graceful expression, and a much more embodied one. The archetypes live inside of the physical body. Yes, they're energetic, and yes, they're a part of our psyche, but we act them, we live them, we understand them through multiple different ways, through our expression, through the way we even move, through the way we even dress. So all these little things can actually be changing as I feel like we're all having a bit of an archetypal transition. Anything else for this one, please? Not really. Sort of feels like quite quiet. It's less about like looking up or along or even looking underneath. It's much more about this holding. Like I feel like I want to bring my knees up towards my chest, almost like in that fetal position. And just kind of like let the emotions move through the body. This like, I've got you, like I've really got you. No matter what's going on around us, we've got this support, like this red ring. Red ring, almost want to bring that to the base chakra as well. So like finding safety inside of your physical body as you arrive back into the space and allow for your body to communicate. It's not going to spit really fast. It's going to do it nice and gently as you catch your breath. Okay. And what was the third vision, please? In the ocean without a raft, in the ocean without a boat. So just in the ocean. And this is that metaphor, or it is a metaphor, I've only ever been taught this almost like real life. When you swim out into a rip, and people actually drown, don't they, swimming out into rips because they try and swim against it. So they swim out into the ocean and it's pulling them off the screen. It's pulling them into a different place, into a different part of the ocean, and they actually get exhausted trying to swim back to where they were going, back to shore. And there is too much force happening here. So you can actually just let yourself go with the rip until you exit out of it, and then you can swim to shore that way, which is one option that works, or you can swim with it to the side, so you can give it a little bit of extra energy. I almost feel like this is a little bit of both. So like allowing the floating, but then finding that level of safety, or I want to say that like co-creation with actually swimming with the tide to find that exit point. Your exit point is where that ending, that new beginning. So this asks for a shitload of trust, a shitload of really like beautiful self-talk of like, okay, we've got this. I know it seems really strange to be swimming in the opposite direction to where I actually want to be going, but I trust that it's going to take me back out here. And not to find when it feels like you are swimming, trying to swim back to where it is that nature has just naturally guided you out of. So like swimming against the current, we don't want to be doing that right now. It's not like a literal drowning, but it's just, it's too strong anyway. It's going to continue to move you. And then you can we're not going to end up in the middle of the ocean. It's kind of guiding you into that place where you arrive. So I want to say almost just like trusting the flow. I think the more in flow that you can be, it's like, oh, I've got a bit of energy. I'm going to have a paddle. I feel inspired to take this action, take that action. Oh gosh, I'm really tired. I need to rest. I'm going to rest. Oh wow, I feel inspired to go and see a massage therapist or an acupuncturist. Go for it. I'm just saying these things as they kind of drop in, but it feels much more in flow then it does feel like tension and resistance. So how may I be more in flow today might just be a really beautiful question. And trust that, because a lot of being in flow is very present moment as well. It's not so much focused around how am I going to arrive or when am I going to arrive, or it's just this really lovely, it's like riding a current. I just want to zoom in and see if there's anything else from that picture. Yeah, it's almost like how much can you trust in that space, like the flow on effect, the unraveling of life, that you could almost end up in that position where you just went, you know what, I know the tide, like the rip's going to take me there. And like laying back in that position where you're just like starfished and kind of doing that, you know, like that survival stroke, so to speak. But there's peaceful, I can almost see like a smile on the face as it gets to that position where it's like, I trust so much that I am going to arrive there. And then you might have periods where you adjust your perspective and you're like, okay, like I'm moving towards where it is I'm going. I don't really know where that is. I'm totally in the unknown right now, but I trust. And we're trusting the unknown more and more. And I do really like that. It sounds like a strange perspective coming from someone that reads energy, but I don't call myself a fortune teller. I really call myself somebody that is like a translator of energy. So we work very much on the present to create your own reality or how we respond, and very much work with destiny. So, but when we're listening to our intuition and we're working with our soul and we're doing this work through the shadows and into the light and this constant kind of evolution and expansion that we're going through, all of those things guide you in the direction of your destiny. So yes, they are the future points that we would like to focus on, but you are the one that goes there willingly, consciously. And then the arrival. I know this has been a long reading today, so bear with me. It just brought like a lot to pass on. Oh, we should do this first. These were the 3 cards for that middle section. So the black egg, I like this because it is in regards to spirit. That's the first thing I actually kind of look at. Spirit's like trust in spirit. It's like trust in your own spirit. I feel because of this lens of the unknown in that space, it's almost just what they're saying to me is like, you hear everything that you need to hear, you see everything you need to see, you feel everything you need to feel, and it's up to you as to whether or not you show up to that at this point. The black egg is very much an expression of like an exposure of truth, so things coming out from the secret, whether that be your own or other, whether that be collective or our planet. It almost feels like things being pulled up from the ground for us to have a look at in the light. This can actually be really uncomfortable. It can be somebody else's expression they're showing me of like speaking their truth to you, and it being quite uncomfortable initially, but actually it's the ticket that you both needed in order to move forward. I do feel like this is a lot to do with like the throat, like truth being exposed. I do really like this essence and this energy. I kind of, what's the bridge to spirit here, please? You're an internal spirit, like it is an expression of truth. And so truth can actually change and evolve, as we know. Yet in the moment, as we see, feel, touch, know, sense, are told everything that it is that we need to know in that moment, all of a sudden there's just like I want to say like the spine straightens and the shoulders drop, and there's a level of surrender. And when there's surrender, we're not fighting anymore. The currents can really flow, and that's where those beautiful downloads that we've been experiencing can start to drop in. Do we want to touch on that? Sure. I think that's that energy anyway. So the elk, which I really love, these feel like family to me in some way, similar to the elephants, but I liked this. I thought this was really cool, especially for this midsection, just after the eclipse period. But I was very drawn to the antlers. When I say the antlers, I really want to draw the bridge with the downloads that we have been having. If you're starting to feel like fuzzy and your vision is almost changing, like physically through your eyes, like there's, but you are inside of your body, you can almost have like a buildup of downloads at the moment. We've really had to like stop, drop and roll into them like periodically throughout the day. So if you have that feeling like, whoa, there's a lot wants to drop in, but I haven't given it time or space, you can request this at nighttime. So just state something along the lines of like, you know, creator is a word that I like to use, or source or God, or The universe, please download all of the downloads that are 100% of the light and available to me now whilst I sleep tonight. And you kind of just activate this energy to really be able to settle into your cells. Does feel really important. I'm looking at this almost like him looking away from what sort of feels like chaotic up here. I know this is like the sun or the moon or something. I'm not exactly sure what the author, illustrator has placed here for him. It does feel eclipsy, but I feel like the direction in here is really focused. Why are you showing me that? Through the end of this middle period, I really feel like we can almost see the ending or like this new beginning very clearly, and the excitement actually really starts to come in. So I love that for the November, because the first is really intense and actually starts to feel lighter. We're like, oh wow, we can do this. Oh wow, we are riding through this. Wow, this is starting to feel really exciting. Oh, there's new energies coming in. And we start to experience some of the higher vibrational gifts of this transient time. Third and final one was the earthworm. I feel like we have emphasized a lot of this just with the purging of what's going on underneath. The ground, was there anything that I missed here? Rainbows, rainbow bridges, symbology around rainbows. Keep an eye on that. That's kind of all I really want to say there. Correct? Nice time to get like literally get your hands in the soil. Work with mud. I felt like there was magic around mud, around soil, around clay, around leaves, foliage, I want to say like dried flowers and the elements of nature. And they're just showing me more like that composting period, the way that like worms, you know, move, and the magic that they bring into our soil. That beautiful, I mean, it's you dig up a little patch in my own garden, there's worms everywhere. I'm like, wow, this soil's incredible, you know? And we need this all happening underneath. We need this relationship with our unconscious body for the natural flow and effect of what blossoms out on the other side, right? Anyway, I'm a little bit off track, so we're going to zip back in. We're going to move to the ending. This is the arrival on shore. This is where the boat, you know, he arrives on shore and he gets to his place on the island, or the new land, or the new life, or the new expression, or the destiny point, or the new job, the new partner, the new you, the new clothing, the new opportunity, the new way your mind even thinks, the way of realize that you've been standing for the last 5 years. It's everything, from a cellular level to your friendships, your relationships, to your hobbies, to your dietary habits, to your exercise habits, to the non-existence of your addictive behaviors anymore, to coming out of the closet. I don't even know. I say that with great respect, but it feels like, oh my gosh, I've made it. And so he gets out of his boat and he puts his feet, and they're just showing me like sand, and there's a heaviness and a tiredness there. We spoke about the blood rushing to the legs, so there's like a grounding experience of like, whoa, just catching up with myself here, as this new archetypal expression comes to life inside of the body, and we start to familiarize ourselves with it. We are listening very much to, I want to say, like our animalistic nature, yet it has a really beautiful relationship with the cosmos. So how do the animals and the cosmos communicate? That's a really cool question. But how does this new language speak to you? How does your new internal body communicate with you? And perhaps you get to the sand and you walk right up to where there are other people standing in the middle of the island, and you just want to listen for a while. Perhaps you want to get straight into conversation and talk about all of your experiences you've just had. You can feel the vibration of this metaphor, but the arrival, as it is for each three of those expressions, is very, very palpable. And you might not even feel like you have, I want to say have time to celebrate, because you might just be like, I want to go and explore. I want to express this part of me. Yes, I'm taking that opportunity. No, I'm not doing that anymore. Yes, it's like your yeses become really clear and your no's become really no's, not with any attachments or fear of upsetting, or, you know, it's a hard expression and it's really strong, which means that we have an affirmation of like brand new boundaries in this space. So there's an inner strength. The solar plexus will have a really big boost of energy around this place. So will the heart. Anything else, please? it just feels like the lenses, like I want to say like you've just experienced this flying across the cosmos, and you've just arrived in this brand new earth, you know, this new world, this new timeline. And take time to have a look at the simple things first. What does the food taste like there? What does the smell like there? Well, who's around you? What do you want to be wearing? It's those kind of like I know they sound like 3D expressions, but the intuitive body is going to be guiding you the whole way through that experience, and it feels lighter, it feels lovely. It's okay to just sit back and put the music on for a little while if you just want to enjoy your surroundings. The new archetype has arrived, so it starts to take like the front seat of your expression. Go with it. Go with it, go with it, go with it. It's funny, I wrote down, it's like the energy is so different in this space. There's like, it wouldn't surprise me if people change their names. Like that's really what it feels like. Or, you know, once a woman becomes a mother, that feeling of like maiden to mother, and how quickly that initiation is. And it doesn't mean that doesn't come with grief and turmoil, but it's very instant, even though it's been gradual for that 9-month period, as has your process. And then you're out the other side and it's like, whoa, I've got to feed and do the things. I won't talk from experience, but it feels really, really big. Like having, you know, your vision not being very clear for a couple of years, and putting on getting your prescription eye match and putting on your new glasses, and all of a sudden you can see everything. Getting your taste back after being unwell. It's strong. The raft is like an arrival that is like just bathe in the goodness for a little bit. That's really what I want to say there. If you've been on around that little red ring, as it arrives, there's not this rush to like get up and run to the party in the middle of the island. It's like, or this new world. So it's just the expression metaphorically. It really is this sensation of like, I'm just gonna like feel the solid land for a little bit. You've just caught your breath. So it feels a bit starfishy, like from that first card. The other one I want to bring into this just for now is that lizard energy. So almost that like stopping, pausing, letting your clothes dry, like letting the sun come out, that creation energy, feel your body back up, giving yourself a little bit of time to come to life. Even though internally it can actually feel like there's a smile there, there's peace and tranquility, and perhaps it's a long time since you've experienced that. Anything else there? Journaling is going to be your best friend in that place, because it's not going to be a really cognitive like reality shift. It'll affect your mind, but it's almost like you've had an upgrade with your sensitivity as well. So it's going to be sensations that you're feeling. Like, I feel really drawn to this experience. I feel like I want to wear, I don't know, bamboo clothing instead of polyester. It's like you start to feel your way through your experience, and this is really beautiful. Writing your way through this can help your artistic expression and bring forth the creation of this like transformative experience. And the last one is that which sort of hits the ground running. The like being in the rip without the flotation device. So when you finally feel like your feet can touch the ground, there's like a, oh my gosh, get me there kind of a feeling. And as you arrive, it's interesting because they show me like almost like the body is like naked. There's a real freedom involved if you are on this level of expression, like, wow, I'm out the other side. But then that kind of like wild expressive energy, which is almost like, yeah, I want to celebrate and share lots of joy and be around other people. And but there's a vulnerability in that as well. So as you arrive with the other people, you're like, oh, I'm not wearing my clothes. So kind of catch up with yourself. Make sure that you give yourself time to, I want to say, express yourself vulnerably to those who you need to express yourself to be really honest with yourself about the new way of doing things. And I want to say more than anything, like, this is a big attention on the physical body. So like being really realistic as to whether you have been grounded, being really realistic as to whether your routine has been supporting you, be really realistic about, I want to say, your goal setting too. That's where they're bringing this to. It's almost like, because you arrive and you've got this big elevated experience, allow the ideas to drop in while you're in that place. But it's almost like manifesting generator style, where we want to like act as they come through, but I don't. It's more like I want to take this from a generator's perspective. So Let the ideas be there, but let them neutralize before you move forward, or let them kind of come down. It's almost that real big high to like come down, get settled in the body and move forward from that place. I do feel like this is almost like coming out of hermit mode expression as well. So much more of a social essence in that space. Overall, I really do feel like we're moving into a deeper expression of our true selves, becoming more conscious. It is moving into the light. This is heart expression. This is people waking up, a conscious collective shift. The matrix feels really different collectively and individually. People's gifts are going to be opening. It's going to be a really interesting time, beautiful time to support other people, to be supported by other people. There's a real kind of coming together in this place, meeting like-minded people, discovering new parts of yourself that there hasn't been room to express yet. And less fear of the darkness internally. You know, this is a conversation we need to have over and over and over again. And this is, again, part of our evolution, and we are moving into a more of a conscious state. Raising the vibration of our own beings, on our own soul's evolution, the eternal part of us, but also making a bit of an impact while we are here. And that doesn't need to be huge. You know, little bits are wonderful. That leads us to, which was really cool, because we got the black egg and the gold egg. This is truth. It's brand new beginnings. It's a whole new chapter. It's like, what's inside the egg? That would be the question I would love to ask you. And I feel like that's what gets cracked open at the time of you arrive into your new expression. Perhaps inside the egg through meditation is your archetypal expression. Perhaps it's a new opportunity. Perhaps it's a miracle. It's this sort of energy that can happen right now. Surprises, things that just kind of come out of nowhere. It's like miracles in form. And I feel like if you've been asking for those signs from the universe to, like, you know, show me that this is real, show me that I'm a magical human being, you're going to feel this, you know, you're going to see this. So what's inside your magic egg? That's where I feel like I'm going to leave it. And you can look at this in your meditation. Perhaps you crack it open, perhaps it's not ready to be cracked open yet. And perhaps when you arrive on shore, you get that insight, because what is in the unknown right now, it's beautiful and it's radiating and it's coming, but you don't need to have all that insight yet. Your being, your spirit will show you if it's time, and if it's not, then just be excited. It's like waiting for Easter, you know. On Easter you get to wake up and eat the chocolates, and really you don't need to do much about it before then. We just make space. Thank you. I know this was a little bit longer today. It really did feel like there was a lot to cover. As I said, my new guides kind of came in, and very different expression, which I'm loving, a little bit more permission. I went to apologize about the sort of chaotic expression to start the reading off with, but I really just, some of that is you know, a really deep sensitivity in picking up on this. And when I place that intention and set myself up to channel for you guys and pick up on what's going on collectively, obviously I do feel that through my system. So yeah, I feel like we've arrived at a sense of expansion and peace at the very end of the month there. Go gently, go well. If you would love a reading, I think it's a really awesome time to really specify this energy for you, and how, you know, what areas this is showing up in your own life. I've always got space for intuitive development. I say always, but there's always like a 3-month sort of a journey. And towards the end of that, there are new openings. So there's applications on my website. You can see all those details below. Readings are obviously there as well in my calendar. Always love your feedback. Just drop a little hello. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends or your family, your soul tribe. I'm intending on spending much more time on YouTube and less on some of the other platforms. Instagram's going to be more of a director over here, as I love to utilize my voice and film videos, and it's feeling just a bit flashy, which I love. I think it's a really beautiful platform for art and these other soul expressions, but that's where I'm feeling the pull towards. So we'll trust that, see if it's like that out the other side. But sending you heaps and heaps of love. Get in touch if you need some extra support. There is also a program that you can do for your intuition as far as the skill set goes. So there's real like structure and foundations of your gift space. Intuition, as I mentioned, is a skill set that can be learned. It is really natural. And from that space, when we have that relationship, that's where I really feel comfortable and confident, because you're embodied. You have the tools and the skills to be able to be inside of your body, where not only your intuition speaks from, but also your gifts, where we start to expand those places. And that's different for everybody. The one-on-one sessions, it's different because we all have a unique unique expression of that. We have strengths in some places, we have weaknesses that are invitations to become strengths. And so as a channel, we pick up on which aspects, you know, work to what we can support you in to really experience an expansion inside of that space. So it really is a beautiful thing. Next year, I'm going to be offering mentorship throughout the whole year. So there will be 3 positions available to support 3 individuals through a very in-depth process throughout your awakening. There's going to be a lot more details about that on my Instagram, but planting the seed in case that is you. I am going to leave it there. It's definitely enough administration conversation. Sending you all the love, and I look forward to seeing you next month for December. Okay, bye.